able to see that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think if you're moving 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know what, up to 6, 7, 8% of a portfolio, it really, depending on the size of the portfolio, is not really going to move the needle at all. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have seen this, as you saw, we've seen this probably in terms of plan sponsors, especially the big ones that in Canada and a few other, Asia Pac, larger plans, which moved into smart beta very early.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them had managed assets in-house, or they have a big team of in-house asset managers. And they were the ones who sort of, pioneered this idea of moving a big portion of their, core equity to do a strategic bet on certain risk factors.
Right.
And we've seen that, come more in line with some of the other plans, which, do this through an RFP or, kind of, done it where they don't have that kind of size of investment staff in-house. So we've seen that sort of evolution in that space.
Okay. So it sounds like the market, kind of your side of the market has sort of met with the other side of the market in that development, so that those plan sponsors that don't have those big staffs can actually invest this way without, since they don't have that. So that's good. Okay. So you mentioned a couple of times, Vineet, single factor or multi-factor. And tell us a little bit about those differences, using one versus using the other, and I kind of have those sub-questions too.
Yeah. So, with respect to single factors, again, with respect to any sort of factor-based strategy, the way we've seen this implemented is, first is, which factors do you believe in? The choice of factors, right? So, again, most plans have, picked, the factors around which most academics have, put their weight behind, those 5 or 6 factors, right?
Yeah.
Size, momentum, quality, value, momentum, and things like that, low volatility. And so once the decision around, okay, you know what, I've looked at, past returns, I've made a decision on these 3 factors, and the most important thing there is the correlation among the factors. So the choice of factors is dependent on, my view on what's going to work in the future, and how well those factors work among themselves. So the mix has to give me a better outcome than the sum of the individual parts. So now there are some factors which work well with others, some don't. So once you make that decision on I want to invest in factors A, B, C, or just A, then comes the question of how do I actually implement it? And the implementation question is more how do I construct the portfolio?
Okay.
So some plans, obviously do single factors and they can implement that directly in SMA, and that's a very simple sort of construct. And in the single factor implementations, again, the considerations are, how much tracking error do I want to take? Do I want to do a tilted version, or do I want to have a concentrated, high active exposure to that factor?
Okay, yeah.
With multi-factor, it gets a little more complicated, but again, it's not that hard. I think at a high level, once you make the choice of your factors, you have 2 options. You can actually do a very simple combination using a Lego block-like combination of index of indices. And we've seen plans do that. Although it sounds very simple, it has its advantages that I'll talk about. The other approach is more of a bottom-up approach. I believe in factors A, B, and C. So let me construct a portfolio that gives me the maximum exposure to those 3 factors. And, for a certain level of risk, I'm trying to maximize my exposure to those factors, right? So I can get the maximum returns. And that takes into account the correlation among the factors and, all of that good stuff. So you think that people might gravitate to option B most of the time, and they do a lot of times.